I was born with a gift, inherited from my father. I discovered my ability when I was 7. I was riding my bike near my house. A car hit my neighbor's cat and drove off. The sweet Tabby was alive, but wailing in pain with her leg bent at an unnatural angle. I got closer and could see bone poking through her fur. I planned to run home and get my parents, but first I comforted the cat and told her I was coming back with help, even though I knew she wouldn't understand. I gently stroked her head before touching the leg above the brake with my fingertips. Somehow I felt powerful in that moment, like there was a force bursting to leave my body. On instinct, I held my palms out flat a few centimeters above the wound. A gold light radiated from my hands. The cat got up and leapt away like nothing had happened, with her broken leg healed. I watched in bewilderment as she dashed across the street to my neighbor's house. There was still blood on the road. I knew I hadn't imagined the whole thing. The next day, I started to feel strange. I was moody at school, isolating myself from my friends. I fantasized about cutting the heads off the other children's teddies. I didn't feel myself. When my dad tucked me into bed that night, I asked if he'd ever heard of anything like this, telling him a kid at school said it happened to them. I saw his face drop. That night, he told me he was born with an ability to heal the sick, and he must have passed this down to me. He warned me against using my powers. He said that when we heal a person or animal, we absorb their pain. For us, this doesn't come in the form of physical pain. It's a darkness that infects the soul. Darkness capable of changing who we are. The next morning, my dad took me out to the garden. He placed my hand against a rose and told me to imagine the darkness flowing out of my body like a river. I felt it leave, and I watched as the rose crumpled and died. Dad said because the cat was a small creature and the injury relatively minor, only a small amount of darkness infected me, so it was easy to pass on. He warned me that healing a human of a serious condition would create a darkness that couldn't be exhumed through nature. Such darkness could only be passed to another human. Dad thinks this is how some murderers come to be the way they are, although he described them simply as bad people when I was little. Shortly after that, we moved away. I met my best friend at my new school. I had been a sociable child at my old school, but I never had any close friends. Abby was my ride or die from the day we met. We were Beatrice and Abigail, Abby and B. We grew up together and our families became great friends. Abby was a second daughter to my parents. They hadn't been able to conceive a sibling for me. Her parents also treated me like family, so I was almost as devastated as Abby when her dad Hank was diagnosed with a brain tumor. It came out of the blue. One minute he was a larger-than-life personality, perhaps slightly overweight, but otherwise a picture of health. The next, he had months to live. I begged my dad to save him. I suggested we work together and share the darkness so it wouldn't overpower us, but Dad insisted it was too risky. He said Abby and Hank wouldn't want us to do it if they knew the consequences. I suggested telling them about our gift. I never understood why it had to be a secret, even from Mom. Obviously, I didn't want to shout it from the rooftops, but I didn't understand why we couldn't tell those closest to us. Dad said it was imperative that absolutely no one found out. He claimed it was possible for others to steal our power against our will. My dad was away on business when Hank took a turn for the worse. The doctor said he had days to live. My mom took me to Abby's house. She wanted to help cook for the extended family that had traveled to say goodbye. Abby was broken. I knew I had to do something before it was too late. I excused myself during dinner, pretending to need the bathroom. Hank was asleep and wired to machines when I crept into his room. I placed my palms over his forehead and saw the magical gold light for the second time in my 16 years. Hank was still unconscious when the light faded, so I thought it hadn't worked. He still looked heartbreakingly gaunt. I felt no darkness either, although with the cat it hadn't made itself known till the next day, so I knew that wasn't necessarily a point of reference. Even so, I returned to the dining table feeling miserable. 5 minutes later, Hank casually walked in after a week of being unable to get out of bed. I was taken aback by how healthy he looked. He was very thin after 9 months of illness, but his eyes and skin were bright. His elderly mother fainted in shock. Abby and her mom were frozen, tears pouring from their eyes. It was tears of joy all around that day. After tending to Abby's grandmother and calling the doctor, who initially thought Hank had gone into sudden and miraculous remission, we celebrated long into the night. I've never seen Abby so happy. Even as I felt the darkness creeping in, I knew I'd made the right choice. After extensive tests, Hank's tumor was found to have completely disappeared. Experts were amazed, saying it was impossible. His initial brain scans were scrutinized because doctors assumed there must have been some mistake with the diagnosis. Of course, they didn't find a mistake. His main doctor suspected his scans were muddled or deliberately swapped with someone else's. There was an internal investigation, but I don't think anything came of it. I had no energy the day after healing Hank. The world seemed like a cruel and dangerous place. I felt incredibly low and depressed. The most worrying part was the way my thoughts became increasingly manic. One night, I thought I had beaten Abby to death in her living room until I woke up in bed soaked with sweat. My knuckles were clean and unblemished, not bloody and swollen like in the night terror, but it felt so real. I feared it was a premonition. I knew I had to get rid of the darkness. My dad was furious when he got home. He heard about Hank and knew what I had done. I've never seen him so angry. He could barely look at me. The next day, he took me to the hospital with Hank. Hank was going to visit a friend he made during his time on the oncology ward. His friend wasn't going to recover. The man was skin and bones, undoubtedly at heaven's door. My dad gave me a look as we were leaving. Once again, I feigned needing the bathroom. I went back to the hospital room. I told Hank's friend I was sorry before placing my hand on his arm to transfer the darkness. Like the rose, the man withered almost instantly. Somebody that sick couldn't withstand such dark energy. My dad must have suspected this. Technically, we're murderers. Dad said afterwards it had been the right thing to do for everyone involved, considering the man had hours to live before we came along. But it hurts to know I could have healed the man had I chosen to do so. Dad made me swear to never use my powers again. I promised, and I truly meant it at the time. Years went by. I went to veterinary college with Abby. This is where we found our third musketeer, an aspiring zoologist called Felix. We were Abby, B, and Fee. We spent years in each other's pockets as we studied. After graduation, we went backpacking for 3 months to celebrate. The three of us had been inseparable throughout university, and whilst Abby and I were determined to continue living together, Felix had found a job across the country and would be moving away. We were on a coach in a mountainous region of Italy when our plans for the future crumbled to nothing. A truck plowed straight into us, sending the coach spinning out of control. I couldn't believe it was happening as we tipped over the cliff edge. People were thrown out of their seats and across the aisle. I could see the distant ground rising up to meet me through the window I was pressed against. I felt devastated for my parents as I imagined them hearing about my death, but the coach got caught on something. We hadn't quite tripped over, but we were teetering. Children cried, adults screamed and groaned in pain. Abby was beside me, but I couldn't see Felix. I called his name, but my voice was lost in the rising cacophony of panic. Abby looked dazed, but she was conscious. There was a cut above her left eyebrow, but she didn't seem seriously hurt. Neither did I after a quick inspection of myself. Then I saw Felix. He was helping a man break the windows on the other side of the coach, the side closest to the ground. There was nothing on my side but a sheer drop. People screamed as the bus lurched towards the abyss, but thankfully we didn't go over. A woman shrieked that she could smell gas. My heart thumped in terror when I realized she was right. Fee and the other man started yelling at people to climb out of the windows. They helped mothers out before passing them their children. More and more people got to safety as the stench of gasoline became overpowering. Soon there was nobody left on the coach but us and another group struggling to lift an unconscious friend to safety. He had a head injury and a broken arm. He was a big man, so even with Abby and me helping, we couldn't lift him high enough to get him through the window. The tilt of the coach made it impossible. Nobody else had been unconscious, so even if they were injured and needed help with the climb, they weren't completely helpless. "This place is going to blow up or fall," Fee said urgently. "We need to get out. We'll have to leave him," said the man that helped Fee break the windows. The woman beside me screamed that she wasn't leaving her brother. I knew what I had to do. The man gained consciousness about a minute after I healed him. The others gazed at me with a mix of fear and awe. The healed man and his friends escaped through one window while I helped Abby out the other. She looked down at me before leaping to the ground. "You saved my dad, didn't you?" I nodded. Her eyes filled with tears. Then someone yelled at her to get down and away from the coach. Fee tried to help me out the window Abby had just vacated, but I refused. I explained about the darkness as quickly as I could, desperate for him to get out before the coach became an inferno. "You have to come with me," Fee begged. "We can find another dying person to give this darkness thing to." I recalled the vision where I beat Abby to death. I couldn't take the risk. I could already feel the darkness corroding my very being. It seemed to get more aggressive every time I allowed it to infiltrate my soul. Felix grabbed my wrist, twisting it. I cried out in pain and tried to struggle free, but I couldn't. I remembered my dad saying it was possible for someone to steal our power, but it wasn't my power Fee was taking. It was the darkness. I begged him to put it back. Abby was screaming at us from outside the coach to hurry. The other man dragged her away. The smell of gas was worsening by the second. We were almost out of time. "Go," Fee yelled at me. I thought again of my parents. I was their only child. I heaved myself through the window and sprinted the moment my feet hit the ground. Moments later, a wall of heat pushed me forward and threw me down. Then Abby's arms were around me. By the time the wind had cleared the smoke from the air, the coach had disappeared. The blast had sent it over the edge. I went into Abby's shoulder, unable to believe Felix was gone. I'm writing this account 5 years later. Part of me wishes I had kept my promise to my dad and hadn't healed anyone else. Then Fee would still be here. Another part wishes Fee stole my power as well as my darkness. I'm pregnant, so it could be passed to my child. My dad saw it as a curse. To me, it was a gift. Maybe I'm being wildly optimistic, but I hope my child will manage it better than we did. And to him or her, it can be a superpower. Whatever happens, I'll tell my child all about their Uncle Felix. He didn't need a gift to heal and save lives.
You're a pizza delivery guy. It isn't your dream job, but you don't hate the work. It's a tolerable way to pay the rent until you figure out what to do with your life. Your boss is what you call a stand-up guy. After the recent news reports about fast food delivery workers getting attacked and mugged, he insisted all staff members work in pairs when delivering to isolated or rundown areas. Other takeout restaurants only care about the bottom line, and the safety of their employees comes second. Your boss isn't like that, so you feel safe when the order comes through for 2 large margaritas to be delivered to a house out in the sticks. You and Lois can go together. You get on well with Lois. You're not exactly friends, but you always have a laugh at work. And you occasionally see her in a social capacity because she's close with your girlfriend Amanda. It takes half an hour to get to the house. You hope the pizzas are still warm. They're in a storage bag, designed to retain heat, but most deliveries are made in 15 minutes or less, so you're slightly concerned. The pizzas are the least of your worries when your headlights reveal the dilapidated state of the house. It looks abandoned, with wooden panels sealing several broken windows. Graffiti artists have made their mark on the wall beside the front door. Despite all this, you can't assume that nobody lives here. You have to at least try the doorbell. It's your job. Your boss is cool, but not that cool. You don't want the cost of undelivered pizzas taken out of your wages. Lois looks apprehensive. You assure her it'll be okay before you both get out of the car and take tentative steps towards the isolated house. The porch creaks under your boots. The night air is scented with rain and pine needles. Something off to the side catches your eye. There's a splatter of a dark substance up the wall. You're straining to see in the moonlight, wondering if it's blood, when Lois gasps. You follow her frightened gaze to an ominous figure lurking in the darkness. He, or maybe it's a she, is wearing a black ankle-length hooded cloak. You wonder if this is a prank set up by your co-workers back at the shop. This isn't the attire of the average mugger. Lois grips your arm and points to a second cloaked figure emerging from the dark. You spot a third and a fourth, a fifth and a sixth. Lois's nails dig further into your flesh. The figures stride swiftly towards you, approaching from all directions. They're between you and the car. You doubt you'll be able to get past them to reach your vehicle. Lois is making panicked noises. You know you have to take charge. You ask Lois where her phone is. She says she left it in the car. You pat your pockets and realize you've made the same mistake. It had been low in battery, so you plugged it into the USB charging point. It's still there now, so close yet utterly useless. You smash the nearest window. The glass easily falls from its rotten frame, with a clatter that shatters the night. You lift Lois to help her through before climbing in yourself. The house is empty and filthy, clearly abandoned. You plan to find the back door and escape that way. But when you reach the rear of the property, you see more figures coming towards the house from that direction. You take Lois's hand and lead her back towards the front door. You'll have to make a dash for the car and hope to get between the figures. But one of them is climbing through the broken window when you get there. You pull Lois up the stairs and lock yourself in the bathroom. The lock is flimsy and won't hold under pressure, but it gives you time to catch your breath. Your heart is beating hard and your limbs are shaking. Lois is white in the grim darkness. "What do we do?" she gasps. There isn't any furniture you can use to barricade the door. Lois screams when somebody crashes against the door from the other side. The lock holds. You sit down with your back against the door, so you're barricading it with your body, and Lois follows suit. This seems like a good idea until a machete penetrates the door inches above your head. Lois screams again. None of this feels real. You run over to the window, wondering if you can jump, but it's too far down, and there aren't any footholds. The machete punches through the door again. On impulse, you release the lock and swing the door open. Your assailant is still holding the handle of the machete and comes stumbling towards you. He didn't expect the door to open, and you didn't expect to snap his neck without a moment's thought, but you do. Your uncle taught you how when he needed to put animals on his farm out of their misery. You strip the assailant of his cloak. He's naked underneath, but you barely notice this. You're too shocked by the intricate tattoos that pattern his entire face and shaved head. His mouth gapes open and you're alarmed to see he has no teeth or tongue. You shove the cloak at Lois, telling her to put it on. You know there won't be much time before another figure appears. You can hear creaky footsteps in the adjacent room. Thankfully, the hood of the cloak is huge and covers Lois's blonde ponytail. With whispered urgency, you tell her to leave, posing as one of them. You're confident it will fool them long enough to get her a clear run at the car. You give her your keys and tell her to drive a short distance away, then call the cops. You pull out the bath panel after noticing it isn't sealed in place. You crawl inside and ask Lois to replace the panel before she goes. There isn't much space and your body prevents the panel sliding perfectly back into place. But Lois says it conceals you. She assures you she'll get help and is doing this for Amanda. She seems to emphasize that part. You listen to her footsteps as she leaves, until you can hear them no more. A minute or two later, a car engine starts up, hopefully yours. Multiple footsteps rush towards the front door. This makes you certain the car is yours with Lois at the wheel. Tires crunch across gravel, hopefully taking Lois to safety. Some of the figures are still moving through the house. You hope they think you're with Lois and didn't see she was alone. You think maybe they will leave, but they don't. Two people enter the bathroom, inches from your hiding place. You can see their legs through the slight gap between the bath and the panel. There are no cries of alarm at the sight of their fallen comrade's body, and no expressions of grief. They bend down and drag him across the floor and out of the room. Time passes, and help doesn't come. You're sure the cops should be here by now. Your watch tells you 20 minutes have passed. That should have been enough time because police don't need to stop for traffic or red lights. Lois's words come back to you, and a horrific thought sets your heart racing. She said she was doing this for Amanda. Your mind replays the strange way she puts emphasis on that point. Did Amanda tell her about the cheating? She swore she hadn't told anyone about you and Tiffany because she was too embarrassed. She later promised she wouldn't because you're trying to work things out, and other people hating you won't help. But what if she lied? You dismiss the idea, inwardly laughing at yourself. Lois has been friendly with you since Amanda discovered your infidelity, and even if Amanda did tell her, Lois wouldn't leave you to die. You're certain of this. Until help doesn't arrive. The figures find you and pull you from your hiding spot. There are 4 of them. You get one with a strong right hook, but the others soon restrain you. As they drag you from the room, you get a glimpse out the window. Your car is gone. Lois escaped and left you to rot. The pain that follows is a blur. You're in and out of consciousness when they beat you senseless and shave your head and scratch your face with what feels like some kind of a blade. You pass out when they cut your tongue and then pull your teeth out one by one with pliers. If you knew such pain existed, you never imagined it would happen to you. A few of them chant in an unfamiliar language. You assume the chanters still have their teeth and tongues, but you're in too much agony to care. You think you're going to die. You silently plead for death. But, like the help you waited for so recently yet so long ago, death doesn't turn up. They keep you chained in a house, not unlike the one where you'd been delivering pizza. They feed you broth and beat you when you don't worship Satan correctly, according to their rules and regulations. You have no idea how long you've been there. It could be weeks or months. You don't know if it's night or day. But then everything changes and you're pleased to find it's the darkest kind of night outside. It makes your fire all the brighter. You love watching that house in flames. You relish the scent of burning flesh and their cries of terror. The very chains that bound you are holding your enemies now. Well, all but one. You climb up the fire escape and through an open window. Lois is in her kitchen. She jumps when she notices an intruder, but otherwise doesn't look that shocked to find a cloaked figure in her apartment. She is shocked when you pull down your hood and she sees it's you. The realization takes her a few seconds. You're thinner than when she last saw you, not to mention the scars now etched on your once unblemished skin. She tries to run, but you easily catch her and smash her face against the kitchen counter. You hear her nose explode. She's still conscious when you strangle her to death. This makes you happy, although you don't experience joy in the way you used to. Elation might be a better word for how you feel when Lois struggles until she can fight no more. You leave her body on the kitchen tiles. Amanda smiles at you from a photograph pinned to the fridge with a magnet. But all you feel is disassociation. You catch your reflection in the hallway mirror on the way out. It's a surreal experience. Your eyes are staring back at you, but the person behind them is no more familiar than the tattoos on your face. We are two strangers facing each other at a metaphorical crossroads. I'm not sure if you realize, this is where your story ends, and mine begins.
The moon was almost full, but the overhanging trees meant its light wasn't close to sufficient. Roger's flashlight only invaded a few meters of the darkness ahead. We should have brought a flashlight each, but I doubt it would have offered a great deal more light or comfort. As we walked slowly down the path, leaves crunched and twigs snapped around us from all directions. Roger flung his light this way and that, but failed to find the sources of the sounds. I knew it was probably just animals. A badger perhaps, maybe mice or squirrels, possibly even wandering house cats, but this didn't stop my heart from hammering or my mind from envisioning the worst. I wasn't expecting a complete absence of artificial lighting at the cemetery. I wondered if there was a reason for the lack of streetlights. Maybe people just aren't supposed to visit graveyards at 1:30 in the morning. Cheyenne was breathing heavily beside me. "Guys, I'm not sure about this," she whispered. "We've been over this, babe," Roger replied. "We'll be in and out." I agreed with Cheyenne, but there was no point voicing this opinion. Jody knew I didn't think this plan was a good idea. In fact, I thought it was a phenomenally terrible idea. But Jody wasn't to be dissuaded, and I wasn't going to let her do this without me. Roger and Cheyenne were our closest friends and good people in general, but I was aware of their flaws. I didn't trust Roger to have Jody's best interests at heart, or to protect her if anything went wrong. We had attended Joel Larkin's funeral a few days earlier. We watched as he was laid to rest in this very cemetery. He had been an elderly and incredibly wealthy man. Jody worked for him back in the day when he was starting to build his property empire. Roger was a friend of his son. I noticed Roger and Jody perk up and exchange glances when the vicar mentioned Mr. Larkin would be buried with his beloved jewels and family emblems. Why the family thought it wise to make this fact known to every Tom, Dick and Harry is beyond my comprehension. They may as well have announced it in the local paper or on that TikTok thing the kids use these days. Jody's brother is a recovering gambling addict. He's worked really hard to get back on track, but debts don't go away. This is why I found myself in the graveyard, the wrong side of midnight, with my wife, our greedy friend, and his timid other half. Roger scanned the graves with his flashlight until he found Mr. Larkin's. The soil and flowers were still fresh. "This isn't right," I told the others. I hadn't planned to bother protesting again, but I felt I had to. Now we were in front of the grave we planned to rob. "Old man Larkin's not going to miss 'em, is he?" Roger said without a hint of remorse. "Let's just get on with it," he continued. "Shy, you walk down that way. Jode, you go back that way and tell us if anyone's coming." Jody looked at me. "I'll dig, Tom can watch," she said. I flashed her a grateful smile. I didn't want to see Mr. Larkin's cold, dead face as we robbed him blind. I walked back the way we came. I thought it was probably for the best I didn't bring a flashlight. I could have used my phone, but decided against it because the light might attract attention. I could just about see the path ahead and the nearest graves on each side. When the entrance was in sight, I heard movement to the right, much louder than anything from before. I spun round in horror, convinced something was there. I was about to rush back to the others when I noticed a large black dog appear behind a nearby gravestone. I breathed a sigh of relief, glad it wasn't the police or a gang of rival thieves that would leave us for dead, but the dog still put me on edge. I couldn't see its eyes in the dark, but I sensed it looking at me. I vaguely remembered reading something about black dogs being bad omens. This reasserted my fear that what we were doing was a terrible idea, but the dog didn't seem like it was about to attack. I stood statue still until it padded away. Minutes later, Cheyenne screamed loud enough to wake the dead. Very concerning considering where we were. I ran back to the others, my heart thudding, desperate to know what was happening. My mind feared the worst and showed me images of Jody hurt, or worse. "There was black smoke!" Cheyenne screeched. "Shut the hell up!" Roger hissed. "Someone'll hear you!" "Aren't you hearing me?" Cheyenne cried. "It was thick black smoke, moving like a monster, a smoke monster." "There's no such thing as bloody smoke monsters," Roger insisted, looking exasperated. "It was probably from a chimney or something," Jody added. "What chimney?" Cheyenne replied. "Why don't you believe me?" "Look," I said, keeping my voice tranquil, hoping this would have a calming effect on Cheyenne. "I do believe you, but I don't think it's anything to worry about. We're almost done. You stay here with the others. I'll walk back and forth on my own to check the coast is clear." Jody and Roger were standing in the grave, with a huge pile of dirt on the ground above them. I was sure they were close to reaching the coffin. Then we could grab the loot, refill the grave, and leave. Cheyenne started sobbing. Jody climbed out of the grave to comfort her. That's when the beast leapt out from the dark. It was on Roger before I had processed what I was seeing. It must have been about 7 feet tall. Huge muscles bulged beneath its black furred body. Its claws were the length of my forearm. Cheyenne screamed and pulled away from Jody, running towards the exit. I saw her trip on the path before I turned my attention back to Roger. He was grunting in pain, but managed to get out from under the beast. Jody pulled him out of the grave. His shirt was torn and darkened with blood, but he didn't look seriously hurt. He pulled a knife from the back of his jeans. It was a decent-sized kitchen knife. Roger drove the knife towards the beast's chest as it leapt from the grave. I was sure the beast was a goner, but it turned to smoke a split second before the blade made contact. Jody gasped in amazement. I was too dumbfounded to move. "What the hell?" Roger muttered as the smoke formed itself into a small tornado and rushed away. "Let's get out of here," Jody said urgently. Roger looked down at the grave reluctantly, but decided Jody was right. We had taken a couple of hurried steps towards the exit when the beast pounced. Roger was thrown to the ground. The knife fell from his hand and spun out of sight. Jody screamed as the beast mauled Roger. He made a few squeals of alarm before the beast tore into his neck with its dog-like snout. Roger went still and silent after that. A puddle of blood formed beneath him. Cheyenne appeared behind us and shrieked in grief. Jody took Cheyenne in her arms, and I pushed the women behind me. I held out my arms like an aeroplane, partly to keep the women behind and partly to make myself seem bigger. Apparently, this can prevent a predator attacking. The beast snarled at me, with Roger's blood dripping from its jaw and canine teeth. It radiated hatred in a way I didn't think animals were capable of. I knew running would be pointless. The beast would easily outrun us, and running would also make us look like prey. "We're leaving," I told the beast. "Let us go." I took a small step back, and then another, walking backwards with the girls behind me, never taking my eyes off the beast. It didn't move. When we had backed up enough that the beast was out of sight, I turned and we ran as swiftly and quietly as we could. We made it through the cemetery gates and to the car. I couldn't quite believe we made it. I had been expecting the beast to throw itself at my back at any moment, knocking me to the ground. I went online as soon as we got home. I'm fairly sure the beast was a hellhound. Apparently a hellhound's purpose is to protect the graveyard and its occupants. Clearly grave robbers aren't welcome. I'm not usually one to believe in the supernatural, but I have no other explanation. I saw the beast turn to smoke with my own eyes. Cheyenne is staying with us while she comes to terms with Roger's death. I think in time she'll find someone better. Roger wasn't a bad man, but his greed infiltrated all aspects of his life, including women. I had to return to the cemetery a few days later because I always place flowers on my grandmother's grave on what would have been her birthday. I was extremely nervous, but the cemetery was less daunting on a bright summer's morning. Families and lone mourners were dotted around. A girl of about 7 was sobbing alone by a gravestone. I wanted to ask if she needed to talk, but thought better of it. If the parents appeared, my intentions could have been misinterpreted. Mr. Larkin's grave was recovered as if nothing had happened. Roger's body was gone, and there was no evidence of his passing. We assumed the hellhound must have disposed of Roger when his body wasn't discovered the next day. Cheyenne decided it would be easiest to tell people Roger had left to live in Spain with another woman. Jodie and I promised to give her an alibi if his whereabouts is ever questioned. His parents are dead, and he hasn't spoken to his brother in 20 years. We were his closest friends. If his other friends and work colleagues buy the story, it's possible no one will report him missing. As I left the cemetery, I saw the little girl cuddling a large black dog. The animal scowled at me. I offered it a weak and apologetic smile, feeling very relieved I wouldn't need to visit the cemetery for another year.
Everyone is looking at Mrs. Craddock when she tells us Tommy Fletcher died last night. Except me. I'm looking at Tommy Fletcher. He's standing to the right of Mrs. Craddock at the front of the assembly hall. He's staring at me. He doesn't blink. My eyes dart around the hall. Nobody else seems to see him. My heart is beating fast and my throat is dry, but I'm not scared exactly. Okay, maybe I am scared, but I'm not terrified. Is he a ghost? I thought ghosts were meant to be white and floating in midair. Tommy looks exactly like he did last week, except paler. He also blinked last week and never stared at me. He wasn't dead last week. He stands across the room in science class. He never moves or looks away from me. I can't talk to him because all my classmates are here, and so is our teacher, Mr. Jackson, and nobody else can see him. It's strange how people keep repeating that they can't believe they'll never see him again, and I'm looking right at him. He's not in maths or English. He's at trombone practice. I thought he would be. Tommy, Ricky, and I are, or were in Tommy's case, the only trombone players in the school. We used to share these lessons. Tommy wasn't my friend like Ricky is, but I liked him. He never made fun of me or anyone else. Not even Elsa, who always smells like rotten milk with an added yuck. Mr. Jackson asks if we want to talk about Tommy. I look at Tommy. He doesn't move or meet my eye. Mr. Jackson turns around to see what I'm looking at and seems confused. I shake my head. I don't want to talk about Tommy. How can I with him stood right there? Tommy looks sadder now, and there's somehow something angrier in the way he's standing and the blank look on his face. I wish he would go away. He should be in heaven. Why isn't he there? Grandma says we go to heaven when we die. I'm finally alone with Tommy when I'm walking home. I step onto the bridge and he's facing me, stood completely still as usual. I slowly walk up to him. Tommy, I ask nervously. He opens his mouth wider than I thought possible, and a swarm of flies rush out. Their buzzing is the worst sound I've ever heard, until Tommy screams. It's so loud my ears hurt. It's not the type of scream girls make. He sounds in pain. It's like when my dog broke his leg and cried when Dad lifted him into the car, but 1,000 times worse. I cover my ears and close my eyes. I feel flies on my skin and take my right hand away from my ear to brush them off my clothes and away from my face. My right eardrum feels like it's going to burst. I keep my mouth tightly closed, not wanting any flies to go in. I imagine them crawling inside my throat and stomach, and it makes me feel sick. Then Tommy and the flies vanish. They disappear, just like that. I look up ghosts on my dad's computer when I get home. One website says Tommy's body could be possessed. Another says shock and grief can make us imagine seeing people who have died. But I never saw my granddad, and I loved him more than Tommy. Another website talks about banshees when I type in screaming ghosts. It says they're an Irish legend and people think they're more evil than they really are because of their horrible screams. Their purpose is to protect the family they watch over. They scream when a death is about to happen, a death they can't stop. I turn off the computer. It's making me more scared and confused. I think about Tommy during dinner. I drop my knife in fright when the phone rings. My dad gets up, sighing that his fish pie has been interrupted, as if there aren't worse things wrong in the world. It's Mr. Jackson. From what I can gather, he's telling Dad I'm falling behind with trombone, and I won't be ready for my exam next month. I don't understand. I practice nearly every day and I thought I was doing good. I've got through the main piece 3 times without making a mistake once. After hanging up the phone, Dad tells me Mr. Jackson has offered to give me private lessons after school on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Dad says Mr. Jackson teaches adult students on weekends and has a music studio at his house. It sounds cool. Tomorrow is Tuesday, so it'll take my mind off Tommy. Maybe I can ask Mr. Jackson about ghosts when Ricky isn't around to make fun of me. I thought I wouldn't be able to sleep, but then Mom is waking me up for school. I don't see Tommy all day. Perhaps I imagined seeing him yesterday, or maybe I was in shock like the website said. Perhaps he missed the train to heaven and had to wait the whole day for the next one. Mom drops me off outside Mr. Jackson's house. His music room is cool. There are 20 guitars, a piano, and 4 trombones. He tells me to play my main exam piece. I don't make any mistakes until he starts rubbing my shoulders and stroking my face. Then he tries to reach between my legs. I don't know why, but this feels wrong, and suddenly I think I know how Tommy died. I swing my trombone into Mr. Jackson's face and run. The front door is locked. I can't open the windows. His angry footsteps are coming. I run into the basement. There's an open window, but I can't reach it. I grab a chair and climb up, pulling myself through the tiny window. I breathe in sweet air. Tommy helped me. He came back from the dead to warn me about Mr. Jackson. I wish I could repay him. Then a hand tightens around my ankle, and I remember why banshees scream. Everyone is looking at Mrs. Craddock when she says I died last night. Except Ricky. He's looking at me.
The bond between twins is extraordinary. It's like having your own brain and sharing a mind at the same time. My parents had 2 pairs of twins, first our brothers, and then us, Ella and me. We're 2 halves of a whole. We could have entire conversations without speaking. After graduating from high school, we decided to take a week-long camping trip in the mountains with our friends. We were going off to separate universities in the autumn. This had been a difficult decision to make. Even our friends and family sometimes had difficulty telling us apart, with us being identical twins with very similar personalities. Our parents thought we'd always have the same interests, but we planned to pursue different career paths. Ella was going to study human rights and work in law, whereas I love health and fitness and wanted to be a personal trainer or nutritional therapist. Our friends were also moving to various parts of the country to continue their studies. Aside from Ella's boyfriend Ben, who was staying local to train as a mechanic at his dad's garage, along with Ella, Ben, and myself, our camping party was made up of Ben's best mate, Fraser. I'd always got on well with him, until our final year of high school, when he started flirting with me and making unwanted advances. And our friend Rachel, who we'd known since preschool. The drive to the mountains was fun, if a little bittersweet. Knowing our time together in life as we'd known it was coming to an end. We reminisced about our school years, laughing about moments none of us would forget. We left our car in the parking area and embarked on the 4-hour hike to our usual camping spot. It was secluded. We had made the trip many times before and only saw a few other hikers on the way. There was never anybody at the clearing where we camped, and that was how we liked it. This time, however, our sanctuary had been invaded by a group of dodgy-looking men, at least 10 years older than us. They were smoking and seemed very drunk for 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. 2 of them kept ogling Rachel, whilst another looked at Ella like she was a piece of meat. He noticed me and made a joke I didn't quite hear about there being 2 of us. I glanced at Ella. We wanted to leave. I didn't like making assumptions about people without getting to know them, but I couldn't shake this uneasy feeling. There were 6 of them, all men, and only 5 of us. Fraser looked apprehensive. Ben didn't seem bothered and started setting up camp, but Ella pulled him aside and they had a murmured conversation. Fraser joined them. Rachel clung to my arm. She was shivering despite the hot summer breeze. She was nervous as well. This offers me some comfort when my mind returns to this moment, wondering for the 1000th time if those men were harmless and we could have enjoyed our trip unscathed, if I hadn't been so quick to judge them by their rough appearance and drunken comments. This wasn't an official campsite, so no park ranger was going to check on us. But most of us had knives. It's a good idea when you're camping. Perhaps we could have defended ourselves, even if there had been trouble with the men. But then, I think of Rachel, shaking with her nails digging into my arm, and I know at least our group was largely in agreement. Nobody but Ben felt safe around those men. Ben beckoned us over and told us Fraser knew of another clearing about an hour away, if we didn't want camp near the men. We nodded in agreement, desperate to leave. I was slightly in doubt because there's no signal deep in the mountains, so none of us bothered to bring our phones. But our parents knew exactly where we were. If we left, nobody would know where to find us. I worried about what would happen if there was an emergency back home, or if something happened to us. But I didn't want to camp with the men, and the others were already walking on ahead. Fraser's clearing was further away than he thought, and we had to tackle rough terrain. We were exhausted and sweating heavily in the heat by the time we got there, but it was beautiful. Lush pine trees surrounded the wide clearing. Breaks in the trees gave us stunning views of the mountains and a nearby lake. Summits stretched up into the clear blue sky, and the lake water glistened in the sun. Our usual camping spot was surrounded by very dense woodland, with overhead branches blocking out most of the light. This place was much better, and I wondered why Fraser hadn't told us about it before. I guessed because of the treacherous climb to get here. I had a feeling it would be even tougher going back down. The hike had been closer to 3 hours. He probably played it down to Ben because he didn't want to camp with those men. "Let's go swimming," Ella suggested once we had finished setting up our tents. She was already in her bikini, and Ben looked at her in adoration. I wondered if they'd stay together after Ella left for college. I hoped so. He was a good boyfriend, nothing like the stream of cheating losers I had dated. Rachel hadn't fared much better in the romance department. Her last boyfriend put her nudes online and was sleeping with 3 other girls. Fraser hadn't had a girlfriend yet. Ella and Ben were lucky to have each other. "Shall we go for a walk?" Fraser asked me. I looked around for Rachel, but she had gone swimming as well. I didn't want to get in the water, but I didn't want to be alone with Fraser either. I reluctantly agreed to the walk. I knew Fraser wouldn't hurt me, even if he never shut up about how we should be a couple. "You know, I could defer my college placement a year and go with you so you won't be alone," he said. "You know, with Ella leaving and all, I know that will be hard for you." I held in a sigh, not wanting to hurt his feelings. "That's very kind of you, but you have to think of your own future," I replied. I really hoped he would find a girlfriend at university, so our friendship could go back to the way it used to be. Fraser went to say something else, but was interrupted by a snapping twig, followed by rustling. It sounded like a large animal. "What the hell was that?" I whispered. "I left my bear spray at camp," Fraser said. "I left mine at home." We both laughed quietly, then walked swiftly back to camp in silence. I kept glancing behind, but saw nothing. We cooked dinner around the campfire and continued to reminisce about the past while we ate. "Ella, do you remember that school trip?" Rachel began, interrupting herself with giggles. "Yes," Ella said, looking at me. We both remembered it well. We were at an outdoor swimming pool. I shoved Ella playfully because she was making fun of me. She tripped over her own feet and stumbled into a woman. Ella ended up laying on the concrete at the pool's edge, and the woman was knocked into the water, fully clothed. Ella then hid, so it was me the woman was pointing at furiously when she emerged from the pool. Our teachers really struggled to calm the woman down. "Does anyone want to roast marshmallows?" Ben asked. "I need to pee first," Rachel said. She went into the woods with a flashlight. Then we heard rustling again, in the opposite direction from where Rachel had headed. "I hope it's not that bear again," Fraser said. "What bear?" Ella asked, sounding worried. "Get your spray," I told Fraser. Then to Ben and Ella, I said, "Remember, it's brown lie down, black fight back, white say goodnight." "Could it actually be a polar bear?" Ella asked. "She could be a little dim sometimes." Ben laughed. That's when the night was pierced by Rachel's ear-splitting scream. At first, I thought she was playing a prank on us, but it wasn't the type of scream anyone could fake. It was a cry of terror and pain, of death. I looked at the others. I knew they were thinking the same, from the dread in their eyes. We have to go after her? Ella said, but it was more of a question. On some level, we knew it wasn't the wisest idea because Rachel was dead, and we'd be walking towards whatever attacked her. Let's get our knives, Ben said. Then I'll find Rachel, and the rest of you stay here. If I don't, I saw the figure a split second before it pounced. I didn't have time to call out a warning before it launched itself at Ben, tackling him to the ground. It was hard to see in the dark, but I could tell it was a humanoid creature from the light of our campfire, much taller than anyone I had ever met, probably close to 8 feet. It had matted black hair that reached midway down its thighs. I assumed it was male because it was broad and flat-chested, but it didn't appear to have any genitalia. Ben kicked out, his foot connecting with the creature's face. Its head was smacked towards me. I saw deep, black empty sockets where its eyes were supposed to be. Its nose was just 2 narrow slits. Its lips either non-existent or peeled back to reveal sharp-pointed teeth. I remember thinking it was a zombie and wondering if the undead apocalypse had begun worldwide and whether our parents and brothers were okay. Fraser sprayed his bear repellent in the thing's face. It cried out in a guttural noise that wasn't quite human. There's another one, Ella screamed, but it was too late. The second creature sprinted from the direction Rachel had gone, running on all fours at a pace faster than any human would be capable. It wasn't as tall as the first one, but it towered over Fraser and lifted him off his feet. Fraser tried to get the thing with the spray, but the angle was awkward because he was dangling and couldn't see behind. I was about to tell him to throw the spray to me when the thing tore his neck open with its teeth. Fraser was almost decapitated when the creature tossed him to the ground. Ella clung to me. We were both too petrified to move. We didn't know what to do or where to go. The creatures were so fast. The second creature struck Ben's face with a clawed hand. It sliced through his head, 3 or 4 inches deep. I ran for my tent to get my knife. A weapon was our best hope. Before I got there, the creatures surrounded me, the first, having mostly recovered from the bear spray. "Run, Ella," I screamed. Moments before the one in front of me, the one covered in the blood of our 3 friends, backhanded me with a force beyond that of any human. My vision went black as I fell to the ground. I woke up on cold, hard ground. My head was throbbing. The stench of rotting was horrific. I tried to use my arms to sit up, but they were above my head and I couldn't pull them down. Something made a clanging sound when I tried. I rolled onto my stomach and waited for the wave of dizziness to pass. My hands were cuffed through an iron loop in the wall, so were Ella's. She was lying beside me, unconscious. Some of her hair was matted red from a head wound, but she was breathing. Tears of relief filled my eyes. I pulled hard against my handcuffs, but their chain and the iron loop in the wall were too strong. The nails holding the loop in place weren't giving in either. An oil lantern lit the limited space. We were in a cave. I closed my eyes in terror, desperately wanting to unsee the human and animal bones that littered the dusty ground. The creatures returned, carrying the bodies of our friends. I was relieved Ella wasn't awake, to see them tear people we loved and known most of our whole lives, limb from limb, gorging on their flesh like cannibals. I closed my eyes, but the sound of their soggy chomping and the occasional clash of teeth on bone made me retch. One came over and licked my vomit from the ground. "Please, let us go," I croaked. My voice came out, barely audible. I wasn't sure if the thing heard or understood me. The worst was yet to come. The next day, I woke up to find Ella awake. She was quivering, tears poured silently from her eyes, making tracks on her dirty face. She was staring at Ben's body, Above the waist, he was nothing but a skeleton. His bones almost picked clean. The rotting stench was stronger than usual. I had been getting used to it up to that point. I turned round to find one of the creatures sitting cross-legged beside me, gazing down at me. At first, I feared being raped, but I saw no lust on its face. I was also certain it had no genitalia. Now I could see it up close. It didn't touch me, it just stared at me with an intense look of concentration on its face. "What do you want?" I asked. "Just let us go. You'll be safe. Nobody will believe us." "They're saving us to eat later," Ella said, almost emotionless. Being here was taking its toll on her mentality. It would on anyone. But Ella was closing off and losing her fighting spirit. That night, they tried to feed us Rachel's flesh. We refused, and they scratched us all over our bodies with their long, sharp nails as punishment. Ella soon gave in. She was half in shock and had no strength. I kept trying to fight, clamping my teeth closed and moving my head away from the thing's fingers. One stopped feeding Ella to hold my head still, while the other forced meat down my throat, its nails tearing the inside of my mouth as I struggled. I swallowed a few mouthfuls, but I soon threw up. Once again, one of the things devoured my vomit. We had to relieve ourselves in our pants. I begged the thing to let me clean up, but they wouldn't untie us. Ella wrapped her ankle around mine while we slept because we couldn't hold hands. I lost track of time. I didn't know how many days had passed. I slept a lot. I think it was my body's way of sparing me this torment. I jerked in shock when I woke up and saw half of Ella's hair had turned black. Her blonde locks had been brown with mud and grease before. Now it was jet black. There was no way that could just be dirt. Her skin seemed to have grayed as well. I knew I looked similar from the way she was looking at me. "You have a black streak in your hair," she mumbled. I studied my arms and legs. My skin had a gray tint, but it was lighter and patchier than Ella's. "We're turning into them," Ella said. This seemed impossible, but the next day after more force feeding, Ella's eyes darkened and shifted further into her face. Her hair was entirely black. The things went hunting regularly, usually coming back with animals. It's quite rare for humans to stray off the popular hiking trails. We must be a rare delicacy for them. There had been semi-frequent reports of people going missing, but when their bodies weren't found, it was usually put down to misadventure, or the people having never arrived here in the first place. Later that day, when the things were out hunting, Ella pulled at her cuffs with so much force, the chain snapped. It was crazy seeing her break free so easily, after we had both tried and failed for days on end. She grabbed my arms and tugged me forwards, breaking the chain off my cuffs. "Run," she growled, struggling to force her voice out. I stumbled to my feet, my body numb and weak after days of inactivity. I moved towards the mouth of the cave, but Ella wasn't behind me. She was sitting against the wall. "What are you doing? Come on," I urged. "You have to go," she begged me. "I'm gonna hurt you if you don't." I was confused until I glimpsed what remained of Fraser's body. I felt an almost uncontrollable desire to bite into his severed leg. We were turning into them. Ella's eyes told me everything I needed to know. It was too late for her. I staggered out into the woodland, but we weren't near our campsite. I had no idea where to go. I chose a random direction and moved as fast as I could. My injured limbs were difficult to navigate at first, after days of being held captive, and my soiled clothes weighed me down. But my sports background and the speed and strength I'd inherited from the creatures helped. Soon, I found myself moving at an almost superhuman speed. I would have got a gold medal if this were the Olympics. I heard a car passing somewhere ahead, but my body weakened as I ran towards the sound. The road was in sight, at the top of a grassy slope. When the trees rustled beside me, one of the things leapt out, knocking me off my feet. It straddled me and raised a clawed hand. Before it could strike, a second thing threw itself at my attacker, sending it tumbling off me. The second one was smaller than the first. It was Ella. There wasn't much left of my sister visually, aside from her smaller form and shorter claws. She looked exactly like them, but she wasn't acting like them, not yet. She was pinning my attacker to the ground. Our eyes met. The bond between twins is extraordinary. It's like having your own brain and sharing a mind at the same time. Without words, we said our goodbyes. I climbed up the slope to the main road and ran in front of an approaching car. I didn't want to put my thumb out, knowing they probably wouldn't stop. I needed help now. The screech of the brakes was the last thing I heard before the car slammed into me. I woke up in the hospital, our parents at my bedside. I cried, telling them Ella was lost. I told the police we were attacked by savage humans, knowing they wouldn't believe the real story. I made sure the descriptions I gave were significantly different from those of the men we met at our usual camping spot. I didn't want them getting the blame. I said Ella and our friends were dead when I escaped. The police searched the area close to where I was hit by the car, but found nothing. My hair returned to its usual shade of blonde, but my skin remained slightly gray. I often get nasty comments hurled at me on the street. People say I look like a walking corpse. I don't mind my coloring. In a weird way, it makes me feel closer to Ella. I was vegetarian before our ill-fated camping trip. I have no desire to eat human flesh, but I'm no longer a veggie. I often wake up in the middle of the night, craving raw steak. I did some research, and I think we were attacked by Wendigo. It's believed they came to exist when ancient cannibals ate their fellow man alive. This act of evil turned them into dark creatures. They don't breed in the usual way. New Wendigo are formed when humans are kept in close proximity to Wendigo for a few days, often being force-fed human flesh. This much I'd worked out for myself. Wendigo apparently live with an insatiable hunger, never satisfied no matter how much they eat. Some people believe Wendigo can't be happy for this reason. I hope this isn't true. Ella isn't living the life we planned, but she's still out there. I've thought about looking for her, but I know she wouldn't want me to put myself in danger. We won't meet again in this life, but she's always with me. I hope part of me remains with her and helps her navigate the rest of our life as a Wendigo.